Hello everyone, welcome to my channel AI Game Junction. In this series of videos, we are creating an AI bot from scratch for Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. Alright, so in the last video, we spoke all about the different types of operators and or not, nor, NAND, XOR and XNOR. The main key highlight over there is that you mainly just need to focus on and, or and not, and you can construct NAND and NOR from these three. So the three primary operators are and, or and not. If you haven't watched that video, please feel free to go into the playlist and check out that video. I will also be adding a link in the description below. Alright, so coming to today's video. In today's video, as promised in the last video, we are actually going to be starting to build our bot. Right, so in this video, I will introduce a new concept called strategic numbers, and we will also learn how can you prevent your villagers from scouting if that's the outcome that you desire, and how can you send your starting scouting unit to scout and explore your map. All right, so without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Alright, so before we start building a bot and we start with the scouting part, I want to talk about strategic numbers. Right, so up until now, we have seen that we can control the AI logic using rules, constants, and we also learned about how can you break your AI logic into different milestones using goals, right? So we have seen how can you control your AI logic using these three concepts. However, there is another way to control and fine-tune your AI logic, and that is strategic numbers. Let us first look at what strategic numbers actually are in a practical sense. So for that, we will first head back to our coding file, and we are going to delete everything that we have written up till now. Okay, so in this current AI logic, we just have a single rule, which is if true. So this rule is always going to execute. Hi, welcome to Blitzkrieg and disable self. So this is the only logic or rule that we have defined in the script. Let us go back to the game and see what happens. All right, let's start a new skirmish and we'll select Blitzkrieg over here and we'll start the game. As you can see over here, you can see, hi, welcome to Blitzkrieg. This message is shown. But along with that, if you notice, one of the villagers actually started to collect sheep, and then two of these villagers actually started to explore the map so that you can get more visibility on the map. Now let us take a pause and let's try to understand why is this happening, right? Because in this AI bot, we have not defined any rules. So why are these villagers doing all these activities, right? So the answer to that is strategic numbers. So let me try to explain this, right? So the AI logic actually comes with pre-built strategies that you can control via strategic numbers. So think of strategic numbers as the parameters to this pre-built strategies, right? So just giving some practical examples of some of these strategic numbers. One of them is percentage food gatherer. If that is set to 100, then all the villagers will be tasked on food. And you can also set, likewise, you can also set up percentage gatherers for all the 4 resources in the game, which is wood, food, wood, gold, and stone. That is one example. Then the second example is you want to control how many villagers actually go exploring the map. In this case, you can see 2 villagers actually exploring the map. However, the scout is actually not exploring the map. At a later point in our video, we are going to learn how to reverse this. We will see how can we use strategic numbers to control the villagers and task them on the food and stop them from exploring, and we will send our scouting unit to actually go and explore the map. All right, so now let's try to understand more about strategic guide. Let's head back to our scripting guide. Okay. So in the scripting guide, there is a tab for strategic numbers. These are all the strategic numbers that are available to you in the game, right? So these are all the parameters that can be used to control or tweak the built-in AI logic, right? A few things to mention over here. These strategic numbers will have a range typically. So you should ideally set a value only between this range. Then there will be a default value. This will be important, right? So this is the reason why the game started off with explorers and food gatherers in the previous example that we just saw, right? So default values are very important. We will talk about what general default values should you use to set up your game, and there's a very nice article about it as well, but I'll come to it. Another thing worth mentioning over here is some of these strategic numbers are grayed out over here, right? So the reason for that is these strategic numbers would only be available in Age of Empires 1. They would not be available in Age of Empires DE edition. So if you are building a bot for definitive edition, I would say that you can completely ignore all the ones which are grayed out and just focus on the ones which are marked in blue over here, right? And before we get into the implementation, let us also see how can you actually set and modify these strategic numbers. For that, we come back to the command section over here and we search for strategic number. So as you can see again, strategic numbers, there are two commands over here. One of them is an action and one of them is a fact. A fact can actually be used to check the value of a strategic number at that particular moment inside a rule. And set strategic number can be actually used to set the strategic number. Let us see how this would actually work. So the syntax is very simple. Set strategic number, SN ID and the value. This is one of the examples of it, right? So if you see over here, strategic number SN max town size less than 24. In this case, this is a fact. So we are checking if this strategic number, if the value is set to less than 24. And if it is, then we are also updating the value of this strategic number using set strategic number. All right. So this is more around the theory of strategic numbers. Now let us actually put it into action and see how can we control the logic of AI to stop your villagers from going to explore and focusing on the sheep, and also set your starting cavalry unit, scouting unit into exploring the map, right? So let's head back to the code for this. Now let us implement the scenario that we discussed earlier, where we will set the villagers to gathering food and we will send our scouting unit to explore the map, right? So for that, let's head back to our coding screen. Okay, so for this we will define a new rule, right? And we'll call this true again, because we want to always, as the game starts, we want to call this rule always, and we will also use disable self. Now I'm just putting a chat message so that it gives us a visual clue that this is starting. So the chat message over here will be starting to scout with scouting unit and putting all villagers to gathering food. Okay. Now, as we discussed earlier, the command to do this would be set strategic number. Okay. Right. So let us head back to our scripting guide and actually check out which strategic numbers to use. Right. So we want to, the scenario that we want to achieve is we want the villagers to stop exploring and we want the scout to actually start exploring. So let us search for the strategic number around explore. So as we can see over here, we have SN cap civilian explorers. This is essentially telling the AI to set a cap on the civilian explorer. Now, in this scenario, you can see that the default value is 2, right? So if you remember in the previous demo, two villagers actually started to move around the map and one villager went on to collect the sheep, right? So that is the main reason for that is this default value, which is set at 2. So since we want our villagers to not go exploring and we want them to collect sheep, we will set this strategic number to 0. Okay, so let us put this in action. We'll go back to the coding screen. Over here, we want to set the strategic number SN cap civilian explorers to 0. Okay, now let's head back to the game and see what happens. Okay, so we restart the game. Now what we should expect is we should expect that the villagers actually don't go exploring. Okay, so as you can see over here, all three villagers in the previous demo, two villagers had gone exploring. In this scenario, since we have set the cap of civilian explorers or villager explorers to 0, none of the villagers actually went exploring on the map and all three came to gathering food. Now let us see how to activate this scout cavalry into exploring the map. So for that, let us head back to our scripting guide. Okay, so the other two related strategic numbers to setting our scout cavalry to exploration are this and this. If you look at the explanation over here, it says that it sets the desired number of land-based soldier exploration groups. The default value of this is 0. Now, since we want our scout cavalry, which will be one group to go and explore, we will set this value to 1. And we will also set this value to 1. SN total number of explorers, right? So for that, let's head back to the code. Okay, now set strategic number SN number explore groups, and we use 1 over here. And the second related strategic number is SN total number of explorers. It caps the total number of land explorers. So the default value is 4 over here. We will set this to 1 because we want only our scout cavalry to go ahead and scout. Let's go back to our code base and set that strategic number to 1 as well. So we'll use the same command over here. SN total number of explorers, and we'll set the value to 1. Okay, now let us head back to the game and see what happens. Okay, we restart the game. So now what we would expect is that the villagers get into gathering the food and your scout cavalry starts exploring the map, right? As you can see, that's exactly what is happening. Since we set the total number of, we capped the number of villager explorers to 0, none of them went exploring. Then we set the total number of explore groups to 1, and we also set the number of explorers to 1. So our scout cavalry actually started exploring the map. And as you can notice, it is going in circles, and then it will, after that, it will expand throughout the map and explore the whole map, right? So in this segment, we learned how to actually start off your basic scouting, and we also learned how to control your villagers into uh, stopping them from exploring and asking them to collect food, right? So with that, this was a very quick demo on strategic numbers and how can you do scouting using strategic numbers. All right. Now we'll head back to the article that I was talking about earlier, which is the 12 strategic numbers you must change immediately, right? So as you can see over here, and as I was saying earlier, you can actually, the game actually starts with default values of strategic numbers. However, this might not always be desirable. So this article actually talks about 12 strategic numbers that you must change immediately at the start of the game. It talks about capping civilian builders. It talks about consecutive idle unit limit, scaling with difficulty level, enable boar hunting. By default, the boar hunting would be disabled. So if you want your villagers to go boar hunting, then this would have to be set to 1. Then there are some attack related strategic numbers over here. Drop off, okay, initial exploration required. So it sets a minimum percentage before the AI will actually construct any buildings. The default is 2% of the map. Maximum drop off distances. This can actually be important if you want to control your villagers from traveling a long distances to drop off their resources, right? If you don't set this, sometimes you might see your villagers walking across the map to gather food, which would be highly inefficient, and it would lead to slower resource gathering. So this is something which is very important. One recommendation over here would be to set this value to lower numbers at the start of the game and then increasing it as you progress, right? And you have these other strategic numbers as well. You can go through this article. I will be adding the link in the description below, and it is highly recommended that you directly just copy paste this rule into your game, and that will actually add all these default, it will tweak, change the default values to something which will be more desirable in the game, right? So that brings us to the end of today's video. All right, so in today's video we actually started to build our bot. We also learned about the built-in AI strategies within Age of Empires, and we also saw how to control those strategies using strategic numbers. Then we did a practical demo on how to control your villagers from going out to explore and how to stop them and get them to gather food. And we also saw how to send out the scouting unit to explore the map. All right. So in the future videos, we are going to continue on building our bot. We will try to send the bot to grow the economy and then click up to the feudal age. So all of those exciting things are coming up. There is also a bunch of other important topics that I want to talk about, and that is direct unit control. So using the basic rules and your strategic numbers, you can only reach a certain point. After that, you will actually need to learn about direct unit control, which is DUC, for let's say in-game micros like hit and run micros or split actions, etc. Right? So we will be talking about all these different things and direct unit control. So definitely exciting times are coming up in the world of AI scripting. So please stay tuned for that. If you liked our today's video, please send out a shout out in the comment section below, and feel free to also send your suggestions in the comment section below. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with the future videos and upcoming videos. And thank you again for watching today's video, and see you in the next one.